Welcome to Coach Bites. This is the 24th of July 2020. On behalf of ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter, it gives me great pleasure to welcome our guest for the day, Nidhi Panjwani. To tell you a little bit about Nidhi before we go on, she coaches and she works with individuals and organizations as an empaneled coach. She also has had the privilege to play a role in enabling someone to look within and to find resources within themselves to be their best selves. Something that one of her clients has said about her caught my eye and says her natural style and insightful approach made me feel resourceful within and take the right decisions. And that's what coaching really is all about, to be able to help our clients become resourceful because we are resourceful. And now let's get into the Coach Bites session of today with Nidhi Panjwani to understand her story, that what made her a coach, what her journey has been like until now, and what are her insights that we can also learn from. Nidhi, welcome to the session.
Thank you so much, Priya. It's such a pleasure and a delight to be a part of the Coach Bites session. Thank you so much for having me over.
Awesome. My first question for you, Nidhi, is all of us coaches sort of traversed various different other journeys and we got into coaching eventually. It was not the natural first coaching session, it was not the first career choice. At least for me, it wasn't. And so it's always interesting to hear the story that what drew you to coaching?
So an interesting question that you ask. And like you, I wouldn't say that it was my first choice either. It's a journey that has developed over a period of time. And I'd like to give a little introduction to myself and my story from a professional and a little bit of personal standpoint
Yes,
to
please.
share how the coaching sort of came into my life. So I see myself, and I think you can see it on screen as well, from the way the work I do is in the space of unlocking potential, whether it's that of an individual or that of an organization. And the three areas I do that through is through assessment. So whether it's in one-on-one assessment, biographical, development center, competency-based. Second is coaching, and the third is through facilitating workshops and in the space of diversity and inclusion and women in leadership. Now, I have arrived at this point in life through a series of curves, bends in the road, etc. So professionally, I have done an MBA in HR, and my career has two parts to it. The first phase has been in line HR and HR business partnering roles in different organizations in India and in Dubai. So when I was in Dubai many moons ago, and I had my child at that point of time, from there we moved to Kenya, my husband and my family. We moved to Kenya, then to the US, and came back to India. So for a couple of years, I was not working. So when I was living outside of India and we came back to India, I wanted to restart my career. What was happening was there was this immense amount of self-doubt, concerns, anxieties inside of what would the corporate world think of someone who's not worked for a while? Would basic things itself, like PowerPoint, Excel, would some of these things have changed? Would I be laughed at? So there were a lot of things that were going through my mind, and I used to think for myself, why am I hesitating in restarting? And remember, I'm talking about 2008 onwards, where the words of diversity, inclusion, what is now a talent segment in specific, returning mothers, were not even sort of thought process or in the distant horizon of most organizations. So when I started thinking about what I want to do when I in the corporate HR space, I realized that in my previous avatar, it was the conversations with people that the other departments would send you across for problem rectification, so to speak. That was actually the more energizing, fulfilling part of my work, creating something out of that conversation. And I decided that I want to experience that pleasure of enabling other people, helping other people. And that's what drew me to the space of organization development and leadership development. And that's where I, over a period of the last 8 years, have built my credentials in. And when I started way back at this process in 2011, I used to be part of assessment development centers as an assessor. And a lot of these assessment centers would have feedback. And initially, it used to be very much pure play feedback. You did this, you did not do this well. And over a period of time, and I grew more comfortable and confident in myself, I started having a more developmental tonality to these conversations. And I realized that every time I was able to listen to someone and I was able to make them see something from a different perspective, that conversation was enriching for both of us. It was an aha moment for the individual, and it was deeply fulfilling for myself after I left that client's location to reflect back on. And that's when I said, I want to formalize this process. I want to understand this. And that's how coaching as a area sort of came into my life.
Wow. Yeah, these kind of stories. So, this is what I really love to hear, how the whole journey traversed. And it's always so interesting to hear. Um, Particularly when you said you came back from that gap when
Mm.
your family and you were traveling and, you came back to in India and resettling in that self-doubt sort of crept in. And I have a question. How did you deal with that self-doubt? How did you address it for yourself?
That's a great question, and I use that a lot when I, in my own story as an example, when I run workshops for other women leaders as well. I started by asking, what is it that is really my fear? What am I really afraid of? So when I used to think about, people are going to judge me, people are going to laugh at me, I used to say, so what is the worst that can happen? There is um, that feeling of, so what if they're going to laugh? So I used to question myself, so what if they're going to laugh at me? What's that going to make me feel like? And I started realizing that if people were to laugh at me, it was, my fear was that of being found wanting. I wanted to be thought of as superlative, and external validation was very important to me. And that's something that I started working on. Why does it matter what others think of me? What matters also is what I think of myself and whether I can do it. So can I do better than what I used to be earlier? And that's how I started slowly reframing it for myself. And this theme of reframing is something I really believe very much in. And you will see a lot of it on my LinkedIn posts as well, of changing the narrative, changing the story consciously, of actually breaking it down and saying what, and then questioning yourself, why is this important? Why is this important? What will happen? What's the worst that can happen, to change the belief system? So I think that's how I took very conscious steps to come out of it.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And it's always nice to know how each of us are as human as we are awesome, and how we have, sort of outgrown our vulnerabilities and have no fear in sharing that, we had vulnerable moments. And there's great strength in that, to me, in my mind. Um, so moving to the next question. So what does coaching mean to you? So when I ask this question, if I were to ask you an analogy for coaching, what would that be for you?
So ICF, of course, has this very powerful and wonderful definition of it being a thought-provoking creative process, and I fully subscribe and ascribe to that. To me, in addition to that, coaching is the art of asking powerful questions and the art of being silent when needed. And to me, the analogy that I always find in coaching is that of a dance. It's a two-person dance. The coachee leads the dance. The coach follows the coachee all across the dance floor, knowing that if you're going to step off the dance floor, we can always nudge the coachee back onto the dance floor itself, but leaving the entire dance to the coachee. So maybe somehow that sort of a visual or a metaphor stays with me when I think of coaching.
Lovely. I love the idea of, partnering with your coachee in a dance, and he or she is leading you through this dance. And how, I mean, I had a visual imagination of it. That's fantastic. Thank you. Lovely. So moving to the next one. So what is the type of client you most serve? And when I ask you the type of client, what do you enjoy serving the most? What kind of client do you enjoy serving the most?
I do a lot of executive coaching or coaching where you're empaneled by an organization to work with their high potential talent or identified leaders. So I would say that is the kind of coaching that I do. Life coaching forms a subset of that because there can be never any coaching which is on ostensible things like working on collaboration or being more conflict or managing conflict more effectively or effective communication without addressing the underlying values, beliefs, and core ideologies around that. So I think that is the area that I work more in. In terms of level, it would be N minus 2 and N minus 3. That is my sweet spot. With N being the CEO or the top leadership of the organization. So 2 levels below that or 3 levels depending on the size of the organization is where I find myself to be the most effective.
Yeah, interesting. In fact, I find it so valuable that high potentials in organizations, very often when one
Mm-hmm.
coaches them, you see that they have a preconceived notion of how they should be, and
Mm-hmm.
how when they experience coaching, how that perspective actually changes to be more becoming more aware and more mindful of the kind of thoughts and
Yes,
decisions they're making, and they're leading their teams also. And that's the reason I say there's something potential about an individual, but coaching can actually help you achieve that high potential of yours and be in full potential.
absolutely. I agree with you fully. It's about letting people discover facets of themselves that they would not have realized or not thought about, or presenting perspectives that they have not yet thought about. So, I mean, it's various dimensions, and all of them culminate in someone being who they can be.
Lovely, lovely, Nidhi. Um, so, as you know, the ICF competencies, we have them, and they are the ones that we try to go by the book in terms of trying to understand and adapt them into the coaching
Hmm.
process that we conduct with our clients. So, which of the ICF competencies you feel is most valuable to you and serves you really well, and I think you most resonate with, not only in your professional coaching, but in a personal level as well?
I find the co-creating the relationship, establishing trust and intimacy. I think that's the one that is the most powerful for me. Has served me so well. I find myself, I find I'm still connected to the people I've coached over a period of time. Many of them have maintained the conversation, or once, even if the professional assignment itself is over. It's been interesting how people reached out during the COVID times also to check on each other's well-being. So I think that trust and intimacy, that you've got their best interests in heart, that this is a non-judgmental safe space for them to talk about issues that they would not want or are not comfortable sharing with other people. To me, that served me well. Um, I I also find the interesting thing is the art of asking powerful questions. That also is important. I have learned over a period of time that silence is as important a question as asking a question is. And that's something that I never used to be comfortable with earlier. This is something that I have sort of learned and evolved for myself over a period of time.
Yeah, it's true. And, the art of asking these powerful questions, um, it's very difficult from, moving from a telling space to an asking space instead, and which opens conversations, which opens ideas, opens thought, and helps their minds open to new possibilities. That for me also is really powerful. Yeah. In particular, when you said trust and intimacy, um, in it's such a chicken and egg, right? If you intimacy comes when you develop a sense of trust, and sometimes I feel also
Mhm.
intimacy happens, and because it happens inadvertently sometimes in a coaching session, a coachee suddenly feels the sense of, oh, I've said so much, and and when they realize that they're safe with the coach,
Yeah,
trust
yeah.
falls into place as well. Uh, for me, that's happened a couple of times. I don't know about you. What do you think of that?
I resonate. It has happened, and I've had people say, I have never spoken about myself with my family members, with my spouse, with my office. You know more about me than my own family does. It's such a
Right.
humbling
Yeah,
feeling.
true that. Yeah, true that. And it's a great space to be, to be able to hold space for someone to share
Mm,
so openly and so much without judgment. It's such a powerful
it
opportunity to be in,
is.
for ourselves as coaches. Yeah.
And when you think about it, I mean,
Ah,
there are times when I'm absolutely humbled by this. It's like, oh goodness, I'm actually getting paid for this. It's, it can be very, very powerful. Uh, some there are times when the conversations give me goosebumps later when I reflect on them and said, wow, this person chose to share so much about themselves. It can be very, I use the word humbling again because sometimes that's how it really makes you feel at night.
very true. So true. Okay, so Nidhi, we'd love to hear of any coaching success story you've had, wherein, what was your personal learning also from that experience, not only for you as a coach, but for you also as, about the coaching process.
So the story that I would want to share here is that of leader who was part of a leadership development initiative for women at a global MNC bank. So this was an year-long intervention aimed at accelerating the career progression of talented women. And as part of the intervention, apart from profiling sessions, 360 feedback, coaching was an integral part. So this was one-on-one coaching as well as peer coaching. So one of the coaches who was part of this process and who was matched to me, we had discovery conversations in the past, and as part of the, I think we had 2 or 3 sessions till that point of time, and I noticed a pattern of her career choices, her professional choices being guided a lot by the need for approval of authority figures, specifically parents. And in fact, one parent in particular. I shared my observation. I had played it back to her during one of our sessions. And as I shared this, I distinctly recall there was literally pin drop silence for about a couple of minutes. And she just kept looking at me. And then she just said, I've never thought of my life and my choices from this perspective. And as I'm listening to you and as I'm looking at you, so many things are suddenly falling into place in my own head. And during the course of that conversation, there was so much silence because she was just mulling things over. Uh, we we saw the session ended. We met for 2 or 3 more times, and we spoke about whatever were the other development areas that had been coaching objectives that had been assigned for that. I'm happy to say at the end of the journey, her line manager, the HR partner, had noticed up, absolutely strong progress. They were very happy with a lot of behavior changes. What was interesting to me this is that a couple of months after the assignment ended, she got in touch with me and she said that, I've been thinking about that conversation that we've had and it has been playing on my mind. And I've been re-examining a lot of what I had done in the light of that insight. And I realized that what has guided my choices so long. So, and then she spoke to me about a one-on-one conversation that we had, another coaching session, and she decided to pursue what she wanted to do for herself differently professionally. And she then chose to leave her job. I'm not advocating that everyone needs to do that, but for herself, she decided to be who she could be. And that entails that she spoke with her manager and she chose to move on to a different role altogether in a different organization. And I'm very happy to say that she's a huge success in that role as well. So for me, that was very powerful to be play the role of an enabler in someone else's journey of growth.
Wonderful one, Nidhi. In particular, family influences are so strong sometimes, and depending on the matriarchal or patriarchal, structures that we have, you never know what is playing an influence. And I'm so glad you spotted that and observed and were able to help or enable her growth, like you say. Lovely.
The
Uh,
other one that is sort of also strange because it's reasonably recent is that of a coach who's part of, and it's a very different age bracket. It's also somebody who's very much younger and relatively in the early stage of his career. So an emerging leader program. So he was nominated, and coaching was a year-long journey for this entire cohort as well. And one of the areas that he and his manager had agreed to be coached upon and was about raising his profile and being more visibly collaborative within the organization. So when we started working on that, a lot of things around values, beliefs about my work should speak for myself. Why should I have to be talking about it? Isn't it good enough what I do, etc. So a lot of these beliefs that we explored together, and over the course of the entire journey, he found out ways that were very authentic to him, that didn't feel that he was having to fake it or do something just because he was part of a hyper program. And he continued to do things that felt natural to him. And I'm happy to say that at the end of the program, within 2 months of that, after the assignment ended, he wrote back saying that I've received a promotion as well. And he was quite thankful to the entire coaching process and the mindset shift that he himself experienced in a way that felt natural to him.
Wonderful. Lovely to hear yet another of your success stories, Nidhi. Um, with that, I'd like to come to the question. So why do you think coaching is a critical tool in today's times? Not necessarily only the pandemic times, but even in today's times, in life in general. Why is coaching so essential as a life tool?
I think coaching has always been part of human life. Whether it was called coaching in the way we would look at it from an ICF definition or from what we understand of coaching. I mean, if you look at it from olden times, we've had advisors and mentors to kings, and whether it was Chanakya to our Indian kings or um, Krishna to Arjun. So we've always had variations of coaching, whether they would be described as coaching or mentors would be a point of discussion for a separate time. So coaching has always been around the way I see it. Uh, it's important because it gives you a safe space to explore what you're struggling with, what your fears are, what your concerns are, and offers you a perspective that what are the possibilities that are open to you in ways that are more natural and comfortable for you, while challenging yourself to do something which is different or difficult for you. So I think coaching allows you to do that. In today's time, there is a pandemic, there is an uncertainty, there has always been uncertainty. Today is exacerbated by the fact that we don't know professionally, personally, how the next couple of months, next year, 5 years are going to look like. From the point of view of my own professional growth, from the point of view of what the society itself is going to look like, there are a lot of concerns. And I think if you are able, at the area that I think coaching can play a big role is how do I still maintain my resilience and optimism in the face of uncertainty, in the face of ambiguity? How do I stay relevant given the complexity and the changing times that we are facing? If we are able to look at these two areas, I think coaching has a tremendous role in helping maximize potential of people. Again, individuals as well as organizations.
Yes, well said. That brings me to my last question, Nidhi. What would you like to leave behind as a message for two categories of people? One, potential coaches, people who are considering coaching as a line of work. And second is for clients. Why should they take coaching? So do you want to go with the first one?
Sure. So for someone who's considering coaching as a career, a potential career, my suggestion would be that this is a profession, this is a career that allows you to play the role of enabler in someone else's growth story. This allows you to play the part of a gardener who's nurturing the seed of someone else's growth as well. And that can be very powerful, whether you play that role as a top leadership level or whether you play this role at an individual level. You can create a ripple effect of positivity, of growth, and of transformation. This is a powerful career choice.
Wonderful. And now, if you can share that a message for potential clients, that why should anybody consider coaching as a life tool to help them live life better?
So, if for a client who's considering coaching, there is a quote by Tom Landry that I really like because it gives them a sense of coaching. A coach is someone who tells you what you don't want to hear, who has you see what you don't want to see, so you can be who you have always known you could be. So coaching could help you unleash your own potential. It could help you find your own resources within. A coach will never presume to tell you that you don't have the resources. A coach knows that you have the resources within, and it's only by unpeeling the layers outside um, that you can be who you think you can be, who you want to be. So coaching is very, very powerful in making sure that you just reach your own potential.
Wow. So, who you have always known you could be, that is ringing a bell in my ears as well.
I
So,
find that very powerful. I find it very lovely about it's about helping you discover your own reservoirs of strength and resourcefulness that you can do what whatever that you want to do.
it's amazing. There's a particular client who was once asking me, but tell
Mhm.
me, I can't seem to think, I can't sing, it's not coming to me, nothing's coming to me,
Mm.
nothing's coming to me. I said, but something, if I tell you, then the limit to your achievement is going to be the extent of what I imagine. Whereas you being in your situation, you know a lot more than I can. So think.
Sort of the first time I read it, it hit me like, wow, this is what we're talking about at the end of it all. So that's how I like to quote it quite often in when I'm talking about coaching to a client.
Thank you so much for sharing your time with us, Nidhi. It's been a pleasure. And on behalf of ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter, this is Priya Sharma Shaikh signing off. Until next time, be safe and keep coaching.